Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we're doing some legal fact-checking on the first presidential debate, talking about the ruling against dreadlocks and more on Justice is Served.
You are tuned into Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is Served.
Hello and welcome to Justice is Served, where we give you the latest in this week's legal news. My name is Chelsea Galicia. I'm an attorney joined by my co-hosts who are fellow attorneys Shaka Smith and Yemi Abayomi. Today we get to start with some politics, which if you've watched the show for a while, you know how much I love where politics intersections with the law. And today we get to talk about that because of some of the issues that came up in the debate. First of all, did you guys have a chance to watch the debate?
Yeah. That was probably the most watched thing on television all year, right?
The whole thing from beginning to end?
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so what did you think? Did it live up to this hype expectation of this fireworks that we were supposed to see?
I thought it did. I enjoyed it. I mean, I was looking to see how is Donald Trump going to be able to perform? Is he going to be able to compose himself, act presidential? Because that was his kind of main
problem going in.
And is Hillary going to kind of look like, I hate to say it, but is she going to be able to look likable? And
the personable factor is an issue for her.
And would Donald Trump knock her off her game? Because would he say something so outrageous that it would just knock her out?
Yeah, and there were some outrageous things that were said. We got to talk a lot about it on Trump versus Hillary. If you want to check that out, that we do on BHL's sister network, AfterBuzz TV. But for the purpose of our show, we're going to talk about the couple of legal issues that came up. So when the moderator, Lester Holt, posed a question about how do we heal the racial divide, somehow stop and frisk comes up, which I don't really know how that's an answer to healing the racial divide, but be that as it may, it was Trump's answer that we should fix the problems, the violence in Chicago, by implementing the same kind of stop and frisk tactics that were used in New York successfully, and I'm using air quotes here because it is not even debatable whether they were successful. It is known that it was not, because when they stopped the stop and frisk, crime actually went down.
Yeah.
So some fireworks went off between Trump and Lester Holt. When Trump proposed stop and frisk, Lester Holt said, the court has deemed that unconstitutional, and Trump comes back and says, that's not true.
Yeah.
He goes on to say that the judge who ruled that way was a very anti-cop, which I don't know where he gets that from other than his own perception of that judge's ruling, and that the mayor did not pursue an appeal. That part is true. Yeah. So this was a federal lawsuit, and the judge said unconstitutional, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and particularly unconstitutional in the way that the New York police officers were executing the stop and frisk. Because if an officer does see have a reasonable suspicion that criminal activity is taking place or is about to take place,
right? That's the Terry versus Ohio legal criteria. That's the only thing that we've heard from the Supreme Court about, or the latest, even though that was a very old case. But the way New York was doing it.
Right, so typically a police officer is allowed to approach someone that they think that there's this reasonable suspicion, and for the own officer's safety, they're able to kind of pat for weapons. But in New York, what you had was officers, first off, just discriminating on who they were even approaching to begin with. They were approaching a lot of black men, a lot of Latinos, and not only were they kind of discriminatory in the way that they were approaching people, but they were also searching for contraband, which is not something that you're supposed to do in this stop and frisk. It's really meant to be maintaining safety of the public and of the officer. So one thing if you're looking for like knives and guns, but it's another thing if you're hoping to find drugs on somebody or other sorts of paraphernalia.
So when Trump then says the mayor didn't take it up on appeal, and therefore, if it had been taken up on appeal, it would be deemed constitutional. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Well, no, because of the disparate impact, of course. So, I mean, again, that's an out that he wanted to probably use to get out of what was an untrue statement. But at the end of the day, it was clear that that statement was not true.
And so we are not hoping that stop and frisk is used again.
Absolutely. And they found that during stop and frisk, it only resulted in, 3% of convictions?
And it did not didn't preclude any dangerous crime from occurring. Very small percentage actually turned into anything and created a huge distrust between the community and police.
Absolutely, and you have, in order for police to be effective, they need to have a trust with the community so that people report on certain things.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I agree. I mean, it really only ended up creating much more strife. They had a report or a study that said that between 2004 and 2012, that 83% of the people that they were stopping and frisking were blacks or Latinos, even though they only made up 50% of the population of New York. But what's more so is that 90% of the people that they stopped and frisked ended up being released without any arrestable offense taking place. So it was really just
harassment, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Harassment and disruption of people's lives.
Right. So for those two reasons, the disparate treatment, as in not all people were treated the same, that it was not effective, which we know to be true because even it was the New York Daily put out this thing earlier this year, like, we were wrong. 3 years ago when the judge said this, we were pissed and we feared that crime was going to be rampant once again and yada yada, and it's turned out to be not the case at all. And so stop and frisk doesn't have very many fans,
except for
not
Donald
in the
Trump,
courts,
and
not in reality, and just by Trump.
And I think he's walked his comments back to say it should just only apply to Chicago, but it's
because your constitutional rights stop at Illinois' borders.
No.
Silly. Okay. The other interesting legal issue that came up was Hillary Clinton saying that Trump had been sued in the 70s because his apartment buildings were not renting to black people.
Yeah, that was an interesting comment because I didn't know that. I had no idea. And then, of course, did the research and realized, oh, lo and behold, it was true.
Yeah. So back in 1973, it was when Trump was the president of his father's business.
Yeah,
Trump Management.
Trump Management, yeah.
And apparently they did not want to rent to black people. In fact, there was a specific scenario where a black man came to ask about any availability. They said no. The next day his white wife comes and she gets an application.
Yeah, and what was, I thought, even more incendiary was they had the comptroller of the company telling them to put a C when the rental application came from a colored person.
Yeah. Not nice and not legal under, I believe it's Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act. And so not only were they sued one time, they were sued twice. Yeah. And then Trump says in the debate, well, yeah, but we settled that without an admission of guilt.
And that is true. That is true.
That's true, but he failed to leave out he failed to include the point where a lot of times when you reach a settlement, there might not be
it's like not even a lot. It's like 95% of the time. That's what
in these cases they reach a settlement.
That's
with
the
no
reason why
guilt.
you settle is so that you don't have to
admit guilt. But you do have to do the corollary, which is to kind of reverse your practices or implement new systems geared towards reversing the impact you were having before.
They signed up to sort of be supervised in their dealings.
And they had to disclose how many apartments were rented and how many were open. So they clearly had to take measures to kind of remedy what they had done in the past.
And it was just so silly to me. It's like an admission of, when you don't admit guilt, that means that you were not guilty of the behavior. But we know that that's not true. I mean, how many times on this show have we talked about the settlement by a city to a family of a black person that was killed, and they don't admit guilt, but they're paying out $5 million to the family?
And quite frankly, I would normally think that's ludicrous, but with Donald Trump, we see that unless you say sorry or admit guilt, then you haven't really done it. So. All
right. So he's 0 for 2 on our legal fact checking. Is that a true verdict?
That's accurate.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to an update on some of the police shootings that we've had recently. We're learning new details about the Charlotte officer that killed Keith Scott, and about the body camera. What was up with that?
Well, yeah. So they get the video, of course, and the first 30 seconds are silent because the officer did not engage the camera when he arrived on the scene. And as a result, we're missing that audio from the video. So
it is police procedure, correct?
Yeah.
To have it on as soon as you like get out of the car or you're about to engage with a member of the public.
Yeah, even if you have an idea that something might be going on, even if you're doing your own personal investigation of something, then you have to turn it on.
So I guess the way that it works is that their cameras, their version that they have, it's sort of on all the time, but unless you hit a button, it's going to delete anything that was before 30 seconds.
Yeah, and there will be no audio.
Okay, and so the officer didn't do that, and so what do you expect is going to happen because he violated this policy? I'm getting a whole lot of eye rolling and breathing heavy, as in like really nothing.
I think there may be some sort of sanction, at least departmentally, because the spotlight's been on. We see with Betty Shelby, we'll talk about shortly, her getting charged. So I feel like cities and police departments are now starting to get used to the fact that the public is going to call for certain things, and if they do not start to kind of play by the rules, then there's going to be trouble.
Well, this is going to be tough, right? Because isn't it in less than a week, October 1st? Jesus, I can't believe that that's in like 2 or 3 days. There's a new law that goes into effect that was signed into law all of like 2 months ago that says that they don't have to turn over these videos.
Yeah, it gives the police departments far more discretion, which I think is ridiculous that they've gone to, they put in several $1 million into buying these cameras.
It was like $7 million.
Well, it's disturbing because they've put all this money into buying these cameras, but what you have happening is for officers not even using them or using them
which was a concern of ours when we started talking about this.
And now we can't even get the videos. Now they have discretion to release. You know?
Exactly.
So these cameras are proving to be not the heroes that we were hoping they would be, and I guess we all just have to whip out our phones again all over. I mean, thank goodness, like in this case, the wife.
Facebook live stream.
Yeah. Oh no, this one was the other. Yes, but it's just. It's not turning out because it seems that the rules are getting tighter and tighter on the public's access to these videos.
And there are some limitations there. So the public's access is restricted, but anyone who is in the video or who is heard in the video, they can view the video, and so can family members in certain instances. But they're not going to have a copy released to the family, so it's kind of an insight viewing. And the public is not going to have access, except that if a request for a video is denied, you can appeal it to a judge. And there's a possibility there.
Do you think that this is going to start a trend around the country where states are going to kind of clamp down and give themselves more discretion in releasing the videos, or do you think it will actually go in the other direction?
A lot of states, I was surprised to find this, but a lot of states already have restricted public access to videos, and it's not only just southern states.
My mind went there too.
Which I thought, okay, maybe it is. Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas. They all have laws restricting access to police videos. But so does District of Columbia, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana. They all also have laws restricting cameras. So I wouldn't be surprised if this trend did continue kind of in defense of their police officers.
I just don't think so, because there's such a place being held right now for transparency, and everyone's calling for more and more transparency. Of course, North Carolina, we already know with the bathroom law that they're going to do their own thing.
Anomaly.
Yeah, they're doing their own thing. So
but they're not an anomaly here.
Well, I don't know how long ago those were enacted. So, but I think right now,
we've only had cameras for the last maybe 2 years, if that.
So I think the current climate right now is really calling for transparency in a way that we haven't seen before, and so I suspect some of those laws will fall, and I don't see other states following suit with North Carolina.
I hope you're right, but with that list of states that Yemi read off, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see it going back. I can see those states actually kind of lowering the bar for the release of those videos.
Yeah. So meanwhile, specifically to the officer that killed Keith Scott, Officer Betty Shelby, she's already been charged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
Anybody
rapid.
else shocked?
Yeah. I was surprised at how quickly that. I was surprised at how quick. Well, first off, I wasn't even sure that she was going to be charged. But two, I was surprised at how quickly she was charged. I know Shaka was more optimistic.
Yeah, this is where I give myself a pat on the back, because last week I predicted she would be charged fairly quickly. I think again, it's just the climate. I think it's been so many shootings. After Trayvon, it was just one after another, and unfortunately, it's taken this many for people and cities and governments and police departments to really react. But I think we're now at this point where they're realizing they have to have swift action and be transparent around some of these cases.
And so the charge was first-degree manslaughter, like a heat of passion type charge. Do you think that was an appropriate charge?
Yeah. Do I think Betty Shelby was in fear? Yes. Do I think her actions were unreasonable, given her fear? Yeah, absolutely.
They were unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
So, because the likely defense by the police officer is, I feared for my life, and most of the time, if they ever fear for their life, they're pretty much let off.
Yeah.
Even in the charging documents, I mean, it said that she acted unreasonably, that her fear, that she escalated the confrontation, given her her emotional response. So I thought it was actually a pretty strongly worded. Finding in that respect.
Yeah, and I think the other officer was Tyler Turnborough. I think he shot the taser. So, given the fact that another officer on the scene assessed the situation to be that of using a taser was appropriate rather than a gun, I thought that probably also washed against her.
And what do you think the chances are of a conviction here?
I think they're pretty high.
Oh.
Yeah, I think she'll be convicted.
Oh, wow. That's what I thought in Freddie Gray, and look where we are now.
Well, in this in Tulsa about I think it was a year ago or recently, that there was another officer who was actually charged, convicted, and sentenced to prison. This was a reserve
the Robert
police
Gates
officer.
guy. He was
Robert
a
Bates, right.
wannabe.
This is
not a real cop. His buddy let him put on a uniform, gave him a gun to play, and he shot somebody.
Yeah, and he said that, I thought I was reaching for my taser, but it turned out that it was actually his gun. And yeah, he was a reserve officer who had donated a lot of equipment to the department, and he was also allowed to come on ride-alongs. And he's meant to just, kind of document information about what's happening during these ride-alongs. He's not really meant to be engaged, at least in this particular case where he accidentally shot the allegedly accidentally.
I remember
shot
that
the
one
man.
from like a year ago. We
But
covered it here.
He was just sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Yeah,
in the same jurisdiction. So who knows? Maybe it's possible in this case.
Yeah, I think she'll be convicted. And the guy's hands are up, and so I think
All right. I really, really, really hope you're right. All right. Yemi, will you do us the honors of the message from our sponsor, General Assembly, please? Educate us, will you?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned education, because if you're looking for a career in tech, perhaps business or data or marketing, General Assembly might just be the place for you. Especially also if you're looking to get a promotion or a raise, which I think is...
I think everyone's always looking for a promotion or a raise, right?
Well, to excel in your career, you need 21st century training and skills. General Assembly is the largest and most respected school worldwide for people seeking to grow their talents and master the marketplace. Whether you want to learn remotely or in person on one of their beautiful campuses, you can join the 350,000 people who have already gotten training needed to propel careers in tech and business.
I think it's so important because you can kind of go to school or go to work and still be online and learning. That's awesome.
We have never... I wish it would have been that easy when we were in college.
Right.
Could you imagine? We never would have gone to class.
So they give you options, definitely. In class, if you need that sort of kind of disciplined...
It's probably a good thing that they didn't give me that option, because I'm somebody who does
we might
need
not
that.
be lawyers today.
Or if you're juggling a lot of hats, then maybe online is better for you. So this gives you both options. More than 2,500 companies worldwide hire General Assembly graduates, with 99% of graduates who participate in the Career Services Program landing a new role within 6 months of starting their job search. Now that's incredible.
Yep.
Take control of your talent and career now. Find out more at ga.co/geek. That's ga.co/geek. Enter the promo code GEEK to save on your first class workshop or event. That's ga.co/geek.
Awesome. Thank you so much, General Assembly, and everybody go get your education on.
Get your geek on. Yeah.
All right. Meanwhile, we have a police sergeant who is suing Black Lives Matter for $500 million.
Like this Dr. Evil voice, $500 million.
Right? Because a lawsuit for $500 would kind of be silly to me. $500 million? Are you joking?
Well, I like that he sued for that amount because the amount's ludicrous and the lawsuit's ludicrous. So.
Okay. And the ironic part is that the officer, this sergeant, he's a Dallas police sergeant, Penny, is a black officer.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit ironic.
Yeah, I thought it was certainly ironic too. But again, I think there's a mentality around police departments, and we're
And we've
living in a
seen time
world
and time, it's
yeah.
not just about race within the department. It's like blue versus everybody else.
Exactly.
Okay, so this lawsuit, what inspired this lawsuit?
So he's claiming an infringement basically upon his civil rights to, well, I can just list the causes of action that he listed. So we have deprivation of his civil rights, that's aiding and abetting murder. We have conspiracy to deprive him of his civil rights by depriving him of his right to life and liberty. We have charges, a cause of action for assault, and intent to inflict emotional distress, because he's saying that these Black Lives Matters activists, and many others, I mean, we can read down the list of defendants. I actually kind of had to laugh when I was reading. The first 50 pages of the complaint are just kind of the defendants. The causes of action don't even come until page 58 of the complaint. But he's saying that, you know, Black Lives Matter, they are inciting violence, that they are being disruptive, and that they are causing him, I guess, and other officers to fear for their lives. And so that's why he's filing the suit, saying that his rights, his civil rights, are being infringed upon by these Black Lives Matter activists who are threatening, allegedly to him, who are threatening violence against police officers. And he cites the examples of the officers that were shot in Dallas some months ago. There were 5 officers who were shot in Dallas, and, you know, just other sorts of death threats that officers receive. And certainly with like protests and angry words being said, he's saying that that's an infringement on his civil rights.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Shaka, I know you've got something good to say on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a social justice organization. At the end of the day, that's what Black Lives Matter is, and we have the freedom to assemble, and we have the freedom to protest. And
Has anybody ever sued the Ku Klux Klan?
I'm certain.
I mean, because
right.
if they have never been sued out of existence, I don't know how any other social I'm sure that's what they call themselves, right? A social organization could ever be sued.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why the case is so ludicrous. And they cannot control the people that show up to the protest. They cannot control the people that are going to do harm that they do not sanction during the protest.
Right. Because if you've ever been a part of a protest, as I have earlier this year, there are some, you know, loony participants who are not really with the organization, but they just see a crowd and they like want in, and then they get kind of crazy, and they're not really part of it.
Yeah, and Thomas Glover, he's involved with the Black Police Association of Greater Dallas, and he said exactly that anytime you have a protest or a demonstration, there's always going to be some kind of nut person that comes in and disrupts and does something that's, you know, undesirable.
And as for, you know, inciting violence against police, if any, you know, this lawsuit wants to hold them accountable for rhetoric, but the rhetoric is the police are killing our people. We got to address this. Stop the police from killing us. If it sounds anti-police, sorry, but the police are killing Black people, often unarmed and non-aggressive, and so what kind of protest, what kind of language, what kind of rhetoric does he think that this movement should be talking about? It's not like obey police orders, because that's not what's provoking this.
It's not. It hasn't worked.
So it's really this kind of case right here just makes the legal profession look ridiculous.
Yeah, we know the majority of unarmed men that are killed in this country are Black, and we actually found out that a lot of the violence perpetrated on police are from groups that are like white militia groups and white conservative groups. Yeah,
I want to see them sued too.
I just want to mention some of these defendants, because he has Black Lives Matter, he has President Obama, he has Hillary Clinton, Louis Farrakhan, Eric Holder, the AG, Al Sharpton.
Okay, I hope my name's not in there.
the Nation of Islam, the New Black Panther Party. I mean, George Soros, who's like a financier. I mean,
he contributes to Democrats. That is ridiculous.
Beyonce, Jay-Z, are they?
Right.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh man, it's funny.
But you know, I think casting a wide net, hoping that something sticks.
I think the lawsuit it's good in that we're hearing the conversation, that we're having that conversation. How many men that are killed every year that are unarmed are Black? Now we know. how many policemen are killed by white militia groups? Now we know. And so it's good that we're having the conversation because maybe it frames it a little bit differently.
Oh, maybe that's his ulterior motive, and he's not as crazy as we think, because as of right now, this guy is off his rocker in my book. Yeah. All right, so finally, speaking of off your rocker, a judge just ruled against a woman because of her dreadlocks. Literally the entire case stemmed around dreadlocks, and she lost. Yeah. What was the circumstances of this case?
This case involved a woman named Chastity Jones. She was going in for an interview with a company, Catastrophe Management Systems, for like one of those the people that answer the phone, like customer service representatives. You answer the phone, and at the time she went in for the interview, she had her hair in dreadlocks. She was hired on the spot for the interview, but was later told that same day that, by the way, though, if we are going to hire you, you need to cut off your dreadlocks. And she declined to do that, and she left and didn't apply for the job. And so the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission filed a suit on her behalf, saying that was a discriminatory practice, refusing to hire her based on her hairstyle, essentially, which is known to be worn mostly by African Americans.
But she was told when they said to change the hairstyle that we know that dreadlocks can get messy and.
Not to say that yours are messy.
Yeah, not to say that yours are messy. And they said that. Not to say that yours are messy, but we know that they can get messy, and so we'd rather not have you.
But my hair can get messy.
Yeah.
So depending on what I do with it or don't do with it, just straight normal hair can get messy. So I didn't really understand that logic at all. I mean, if they want it to be out of your face because maybe they think that presents to customers better, and that's okay, fine if they want your hair in a ponytail, but it doesn't matter what dreadlocks or just fine hair, like you just put it back. Well, that would make sense, but just messiness. That
was the funny thing about this in the first place, because she is a customer service representative, so she doesn't have any customer interaction. She's not meeting with the public. She's not.
This is over the phone.
Her face is not going forward to the public. She's in a room with other call representatives answering phones. So the need for that.
The logic behind this case is that it is illegal to discriminate based on race.
Yeah. And the EEOC ruled in her favor because they found that hairstyle was so intimately tied to black people.
Right, but then the judge applied the standard where the characteristics of race that are immutable are the only ones that are protected. So I couldn't discriminate against you because of your black skin.
Yeah.
But I guess that's where it ends, because what else is immutable?
He did say that he distinguished between black texture. He distinguished between black texture.
Why do you laugh?
Between black texture and black hairstyle. So I guess because it's a funny to me.
But that's what I thought. But I was like, did some ants get in her pants or something? Is she laughing about this or something else?
I guess to the extent that I wanted to wear my hair naturally, maybe like as an afro, and this is just how my hair. You can't force me to relax my hair, for example. Yeah. But in terms of the hairstyle, which is something that you can change, whether I decide to wear my hair in a ponytail or a bun or long or short, those things are not immutable, and therefore they can't be held the same way as skin would.
And I kind of agreed. Well, I definitely agree with the judge's decision here because.
Whoa, what?
Well,
really?
Well, she was hired, so clearly she wasn't being discriminated against based on race.
No, but the hiring had a condition, and the condition was you get rid of the dreads, and then you have the job.
Then you are hired. Yeah.
True, but if you truly are discriminating against someone on a racist basis, you're not going to even give them that option. You're going to find another reason that they're no longer employed. So obviously they hired her on that spot.
But couldn't that then be subtext? So it looks, by all looks of it, we're willing to hire black people, of course, even though I know that I'm never going to hire a black person who looks like that with their dreadlocks.
Well, that's different.
What is the intent behind them having this dreadlocks rule?
I feel, given the fact that she was hired and given the option to change the hairstyle or not, that it wasn't due to her race. Maybe they wanted a particular type of black person or a particular type of look, but it clearly wasn't. We don't want black people here.
Black women with weaves only need apply. What kind of policy is this?
No. If she wore her hair natural, then it sounds like there would be no argument there. So they would lose on that grounds.
Wearing her hair natural or dreadlocks and the convenience that is, and maybe natural is messy.
Well, one's the texture and one's a hairstyle. So one is just the natural way her hair lays and looks versus, like, again, they can't say, oh, we want you to straighten your hair, even though this is the way your hair looks naturally.
So I think, and the judge also, he did mention that there's a difference between disparate treatment and disparate impact. And in terms of disparate treatment, anyone who has dreadlocks, he's saying it's a race neutral. It's a race neutral policy because if it's a white person with dreadlocks or a black person or an Asian person with dreadlocks, they're going to have to be subject to the same rules.
And we've all seen white people of different ethnicities with dreadlocks. So
we have all ethnicities, really.
Justin Bieber just had dreadlocks not too long ago.
The judge did say that maybe the case would have turned differently if this were a disparate if they proffered a disparate impact. So that yes,
a white person had been allowed to keep their dreadlocks, whereas a black person was made to cut them off.
No, that would still be disparate treatment, but in terms of disparate impact, it would be, the people most likely to be impacted, regardless of what your intent is in not allowing dreadlocks, it's most likely going to impact African Americans because they are the ones who more often wear these styles. But the judge said that they didn't argue a disparate impact a case. They argued disparate treatment, and that was something that you cannot interchange those two.
She would have been better off going with religion and saying she was a Rastafarian, and in which case she would have won the case.
Oh,
but
maybe she should have hired you. All right, thank you so much for your analysis and insight this week. Hope you will join us again next week on Justice is Served for another fabulous episode. In the meantime, don't be afraid to reach out to us. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsea Galicia.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Yemi.
We'll be back next week. Join us.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.